God is a God of relationships and is also a God of reconciliation. When you commit to restoring a broken relationship, what are some key factors you find helpful in fostering reconciliation? God instructed Hosea to prophesy that the strength of the northern kingdom would again be defeated at Jezreel, this time by the brutal Assyrians, because of the Israelites' continual desertion of God and turning to idolatry. They took their military victories for granted and worshipped the false gods of Baal, Ashtoreth, and Molech. Which brings us to our key verse for today, which reads, "When the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, he said to him, 'Go and marry a prostitute, so that some of her children will be conceived in prostitution.'" This will illustrate how Israel has acted like a prostitute by turning against the Lord and worshiping other gods. Hosea chapter 1, verse 2. Hosea chapter 1, verses 2 through 9 is written as a third-person biographical account of Hosea's marriage and children, which symbolize Israel's fate. Traditionally, commentators have interpreted this as a command for Hosea to marry a prostitute. However, a more accurate interpretation of the Hebrew word used here would be to marry a woman who is sexually promiscuous or had sexual relations outside of marriage. Hosea shows that by entering into this marriage, he is performing a sign act symbolizing the state of Israel's relationship with the Lord. The people, represented as the wife of promiscuity, have betrayed the Lord, figured as her husband. Thus, the Lord accuses the nation of Israel of infidelity or apostasy, turning from worshiping the Lord alone to seeking other gods. Hosea does as the Lord commanded and takes a woman named Gomer as his wife. The Lord instructed Hosea a second time, telling him to call his firstborn son Jezreel, which is Hebrew for God sows. The naming of Hosea's son was a continuation of the sign act. The idiom reap what you sow is applicable in verse 4. The Lord will sow or bring upon the dynasty of Jehu what it sowed in spilling the blood of the house of Ahab in Jezreel. Gomer conceives once more and gives birth to a daughter whom the Lord instructs Hosea to name Lo-ru-chama, Hebrew for without compassion, not pitied, or not loved. She is to be called such because she is a sign of the Lord's word to Hosea that when Israel fell, the Lord would show no mercy on them. The marriage metaphor, from the accusation of adultery in verse 2 to the estrangement in verses 4 through 7, is taken to its final conclusion in verse 9, with the Lord announcing that the relationship between the Lord and Israel is ending in divorce. The declaration, "You are not my people, and I am not your God," is a reversal of the covenant the Lord made with Israel, that they would be God's people and he would be their God. It is also thought to be the words written on the bill of divorce required by the Torah. The reversal of Israel's fate will result in Israel and Judah being united under a single head or leader, as in the days of David and Solomon before the kingdom split in two. The unification implies the restoration of the covenant and the security and blessings that accompany it. Metaphorically, the people are again in the land of Egypt before the Lord entered into covenant with them, yet the Lord would symbolically bring them up from Egypt to the wilderness, where they once declared their loyalty to him. Now Jezreel, which stood for judgment, destruction, and scattering, represents a place where redemption and restoration will occur. So here's our lesson. Unfaithfulness in relationships leads to brokenness and alienation. The tragedy of divorce, the ugliness of a breach between lifelong friends, or the pain of separation between siblings or other family members are all too common. Yet God longs to bring reconciliation to those relationships. He also desires for believers to develop empathy and compassion for others who have been hurt in relationships. When we experience restoration and forgiveness in our relationship with God, we can learn to extend that same grace to others. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to iLights. Heavenly Father, fill our hearts with what we truly desire, for who we truly seek is you.